You may recognize this as the business card holder we made in a previous video where we talked about different configurations we can make things, right? We made a CNC version, we made an injection mold version, and yeah, configurations worked out great, but now we want to draw it. So let's make this video about all the ways that we can do drawing views in Alibre. So this is the same one as in the video, except I also added this little chamfered face, and I also added the word business. I love just the generic business on a business card holder. Derp. So let's get started by making a drawing out of this model. And I think the easiest way to do it is to go to Send To and say Make Drawing of this design. This menu comes up and we can choose, what standard we want, the kind of paper size and orientation, and then we can fill out what we want our default scale to be, and we can also choose just a blank sheet if we prefer that. From here we can put the date. I'll date it for the 24th. We can put in our drawing number if we want, and drawn by. Then we can put our sheet number and scale, which are defaults, which I think is perfect. We'll say OK to that. And from this menu, we can check the part's orientation and what views that we would like to insert. I can move this around. This is our front view, right? So we'll make this the front view of our part, which is way better than what we had modeled it with originally. And then I can select or deselect what views I would like to insert. Maybe I would think it'd be important to insert this bottom view and this view, right? This is, I'll put an isometric view in as well. This is not binding. We can still add or remove views even after this menu. So don't panic if you think you have to get all the views right at this menu. We can also say what kind of drafting type do we want, right? Maybe we want it to look like in the graphics display window with the shaded view. I like the standard view, and that should be the most industry's default way of doing it. We can select our regular scale down here. We also can come up here and select what configuration that we want. Do we want it to be the injection molded configuration that we had made earlier? But I'm going to actually just go with our machined configuration for now. And we can even have more options, right? Do we want to have center marks and center lines and hole callouts all included in our views? I'm going to leave it the way it is for now, but be aware that you can insert detailing options, right? I can even say design dimensions, and if I say OK to that, and I insert my views, then it actually shows me my design dimensions, which is kind of beyond the scope of this video. So these are the 4 views that I've selected to insert. Now if I wish to move these around, obviously I'm not going to click and drag. It'd be too easy to mess something up, but I can click on my view, go to the arrow in the corner, and drag it where I'd like. You'll notice that the views all follow my primary front view here. And when I go to drag these other views, this one is horizontally free but vertically locked. And this one is vertically free but horizontally locked. And that's because we want to maintain alignment to our views, right, when we project the views at different places. Now I can right click here and choose Align, right? We'll uncheck Align, and now this view becomes completely free if I so want it to be. I can right click and check Align again if I want to maintain this view to be aligned. So once we have the views in a way that looks pleasing, I may want to section this, right? What if I want to tell the viewer of the drawing how deep this pocket is? Well, apart from this isometric view, which it's not really advisable to dimension isometric views, I don't really have anything to show me what kind of depth I would have on my pocket. Now, it is possible to change my view. If I say View Display, I can choose Visible and Hidden, and then I can see with phantom lines or construction lines what my pocket depth is. And then I can go back again and choose visible, which is, I think, more standard. It depends on what you're drawing and what standards you want, but we also can choose a section view. For that, I'll click once on my view, and you'll see that now the border of my view is highlighted. I'll select under Drawing Management, Activate 2D Sketch. And I can make a line, and of course all of my constraints apply. So I can choose coincident, and I can say make this coincident on my origin there. And then I can drag or dimension these lines however I wish. Maybe we'll make it a bit wider. And then deactivate. Then I'll head over to Sheets and Views and choose Section View. With the section view highlighted, I can rest on my line here, and it inserts a section view on my line. Now I can move my cursor to decide which side I wish to project to. And then I have an aligned section view. That is, again, free vertically, but not horizontally, because we're maintaining alignment with our model. Now I also can right-click on my view, and I can uncheck alignment if I wish to move my section view out of alignment somewhere. So that is section view, but we also have this option for aligned section view. And how do we deal with that? For that, I'll actually pull up another part that's probably a better example. So here I have a flange that has a series of circular pattern holes, none of which line up well. And so if I were to try to section view this, I'd have to make 3 section views to go through the middle of each hole. So I'm going to send to a drawing, and we're going to say OK. So in this view, I can reorient this part so it is this way, or even this way, so my top view is on top. And then I can go to my options, and I'm going to choose hole callouts since I'm working with holes, and probably center marks. We'll say OK. And now I have holes, and I've got callouts, right? So that's a convenient way that we can easily have our holes done for us. So we don't have to worry about hole callouts. But how do we section view these holes if I wish to have a section view with all of them? Well, it's easier than trying to make 3 different section views. We could save a lot more space simply by, again, starting a sketch. And I have my coincident here, so I can make my line coincident on my hole, just like that. I can also use a point and make it concentric with my hole. That's one of several ways to do it, but that's my personal favorite because now I can reference the center of my hole. Again, many ways to do the same thing in CAD. Likewise, here, we'll say vertical from here to here. And then I'll make another line. Another arc. And then I can make another line. Again, my favorite way, put in a point, concentric. I like the control that that gives me. And then coincident again. Now we're not fully constrained, but we really don't have to be. But if we really want to finish things off, right, we can add some coincidence just on edges. Kind of makes for a nice view. And I can even dimension this to like 1 if I want to be very exact about where my view will end. We'll deactivate the sketch. We'll go with angled section. And I'll choose this little vertical line right here. And I can choose which orientation. I'll go over here. And then I have all my holes in one section. Hitting Control Z. So another thing that I can do is highlight this view, go back into my sketch, Maybe I'll delete this line. And we'll add a coincident again on our point here. And also a coincident on our origin. I'll add in one more arc. We'll go with a vertical on this point and the origin. Coincident on this edge. And have a vertical line that goes to our origin. What does that buy us? Well, I'll go to deactivate my sketch. I'll go to Sheets and Views. We're going to go to Aligned Section, and I'll click on that little vertical end. And again, I get to choose my orientation, but now I get to display my holes straight up and down. So there's a little trick for you, right? You can always use a vertical line to display straight up and down instead of having something at an angle. It's a little bit more convenient to look at, I think. But that's an angled section, right? Instead of doing 3 different section views, we can consolidate all of them into a single view, which makes it really convenient. So we've covered section and angled section. I'm going to wait for move section for a second, and we're going to go to broken out section. Broken out section views are really nice, particularly when you want to have sort of a section view inside of your view. So I'll again select my sketch or select my drawing view in a way that the border is highlighted. We'll go to Drawing Management, activate 2D Sketch. Splines are particularly good for these broken out section views because the waviness of the spline really makes it clear that you're looking at a broken out section view. We'll deactivate the sketch, Sheets and Views, broken out section. Maybe I'll try point 2 and see how deep we go there. So we cut our model in by a distance of 0.2. And now you can see sort of the depth of all of these letters as they interact with our broken out section view. We may want to highlight something about this view, but as you can see, if I zoom out and look at the whole drawing, those are really small details. How do I make these details bigger? Well, for that, I have several options, but I think my best option is going to be creating another sketch. So we go to Drawing Management, activate Sketch. I'll draw an ellipse around the areas that I really wish to highlight a lot. And I'll move the ellipse up just a little bit. We'll deactivate, and I can do an ellipse, a circle, even a spline. I can do a rectangle, whatever works best. Go to Sheets and Views. And this time I'll say Detail View. And there's a separate view, but of course you'd say it's pretty much the same size. So I'll right click on it, we'll choose Scale, and maybe I'll choose something like a scale of 10 to 1. We'll make it 10 times larger. And that's actually a bit too large. So maybe I'll take that down to 2 to 1. And you'll see my details way down here, but I can just drag to reposition it and the view resizes. And now we have a lot of viewability. Now I have Detail A and I have Section AA. And in case we don't like that nomenclature, right, I can always right click on Detail A, choose Edit, and choose something like B or Detail 1 or whatever your standard practice is for your drawings. So we've been able to cover detail views and broken out sections. If I stand on my ellipse and hit the delete key, and then I can come in here and delete my broken out section, delete that, right? So I turn my drawing back and I can delete the views that I've created. What is this auxiliary view? Well, as you can tell, I have this whole face that says business on it, but this is the only thing that shows up in all of these views. What if I want to have a view that really takes care of my business? Well, auxiliary view is an option. I'll select auxiliary view. I'll select the face that I want to look straight onto in my auxiliary view. And I have this business face now. But what if I only care about this one face and everything else just takes up space? Well, I can address that in a few ways. The first one is through a sketch, right? I'll stand on my drawing view, go to drawing management, start a sketch. We'll go with a rectangle by 3 corners. And then I can choose parallel with this edge to really make sure that I'm parallel with my face. We'll say that this is exactly what I want. I drew a rectangle around what I want to look at. Or you can do other shapes if you wish. Well, then I'll come over to my sheets and views and we'll go with partial. And when I click partial, then I'll click on my sketch and it cuts out all the unnecessary things and only focuses on what I've said I want to look at. It also adds phantom lines so that you can know that parts of this were cut out. There are other options too. I'll hit Control Z and Control Z again, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Z. There we go. Now I'm back to where I started. I can also go to this view, Drawing Management, Sketch, and make a line. I'll add the parallel constraint so that we're parallel to this face. And I'll make this line quite contained, very close to where I want to look at. And now I go to Sheets and Views. I can say Section View, and I can add a section view even though I'm not actually sectioning the part. And it gives me a similar view. So these are different format options to achieve largely the same thing if I just want to focus on my business. I love that generic business for a business card holder. Now, we'll get rid of that, and I can also delete my sketch. Those are ways that we can do auxiliary views. We've already covered detail views. How about a broken view? What if, for some reason, this view is too long and I wish to save space? That doesn't seem realistic in this drawing, but some drawings, of course, have some elements that go on for a really long time and we just want to shorten them. If we want to shorten something in our view, and I have a dimension on it, we can shorten our view by going to Broken, and I select my view, and it gives me 2 lines. And I can move these lines outward, and anything between these lines will get cut out and shortened. So, if I say OK to that, then it gives me a much shorter view that saves a lot of space, but it still maintains the integrity of my dimension. Now there are a few things that I can do. I'll hit Control Z. When I go to make this view, I can also format this with a zigzag line, which is my preferred. I can also do a curve line, which is very nice. I can change the angle, so I can say maybe I want my angle to be 90 degrees, and then I'm shortening my part vertically. Perhaps the smooth curve was not the best option because I'll shorten it so little. In fact, that might lengthen it because of how little vertical distance I have. But it goes to show that you can do different angles if you wish. I can always right-click and edit if I wish to change my parameters as well. So I'll make this, I can even do 45 degrees if I want to. And by making it at an angle, I wouldn't recommend it unless your lines are going off 45 degrees or something like that, because when I go to make that, right, it really throws things off. So it's not meant to be a visual effect on something horizontal. That's meant to shorten something that's going off, say, 45 degrees. So we're going to say 0 degrees in our case, and we can also adjust our gap width. Maybe I want it to be 0.1 and have my parts really close together, versus if I make this 10 times larger at 1 inch. It shortens it, but of course, that's such a big gap that it doesn't make much of a difference in our drawing. So that's how we do the setting for that, and that's how we do these sort of shortened views. I can also delete my shortened view if I wish. So we have covered section, align section, broken out section, auxiliary, detail, broken, and partial. What is this removed section? For this, what if I wanted to make a series of section views for my cross section, right? What if I have a fighter jet and I want to show, you know what, I'll pull that up. So let's explore drawing this and the benefits of a removed section view. As before, send to and make drawing of this design. We'll insert the top view here. And for the sake of comparison, I'll insert another standard view. So for drawing management, I'll activate a 2D sketch, make a line through my canopy. Right about there. Then I'll deactivate, and then I'll do the same thing there. So when we have a fighter jet with a smooth, curvy body, we would probably care a lot about putting cross sections on the drawing, right? That's for section views. And so if I make a section view, right, standard section view, based on this line here, well, I care a lot about the cross-section of the plane, and here I do have the cross-section at the line that I've drawn. But then I also have the intakes, the wings, the tail, I have tons of things. Well, that's kind of a distraction for what I'm going for. So let's use a removed section and do the same thing here. Now I only have my section. I don't have anything behind it. So I think that's really handy for something like this, where you only care about the place that you're cutting and you want to get rid of the wings and the missiles and everything else. So that is the difference between section and removed section. Now we have another thing that I might as well cover while I'm here, and that's image. If I click on image, it brings up an Explorer window, and I can choose an image to add in. I'll choose this insanely large image that I can change the scale on, and I can scale this down to something like 1 to 100, and then I can move my image back onto my drawing, and I can say add a logo onto the drawing or something like that. So images are pretty easy. Scale them to the size that you want and stick them where you want. Some of the options that we've had previously can be accessed by clicking on a face in the drawing, and I can do something like change my view to shaded if I wish to have more of a graphics display version of an image that I want to project. And then I'll switch to another drawing. So I can click on a face in this drawing, manage view, and I can remove my whole callouts or re-add my whole callouts. I can remove centers or add centers, right? So there's ways to manage my drawing here. So that's when I said don't panic under standard. If you decide that you don't want some of these things, you can always change them by managing your drawing views. And then you can also add in dimensions that you modeled with. And so if you modeled off of a datum system, or you've used some kind of dimensioning scheme that you know you want to carry on towards your drawing while you were modeling your part, you can reinsert those dimensions using that option. But that's kind of outside of the scope of the views that we're focusing on in this video. So I think that's everything that we want to go through. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to the Alibre channel. See you in the next one.